The road stretched out like a scar through the fields, pulling me back to the place I'd left behind. Dust rose in clouds behind my tires as I turned onto the gravel drive, the old family home coming into view after Grandma's funeral. It sat there, squat and weathered, the silence pressing in like a held breath. No more creak of her rocker on the porch, just the wind whispering through the eaves. I killed the engine, and the quiet swallowed me whole. Over by the barn, I spotted it, the rusted Ford truck, its paint peeled like forgotten promises. Memories tugged at me, sharp as barbed wire. Her teaching me to shift gears, her hands steady on mine. My fingers trembled on the wheel, the city's hum already fading, replaced by this vast, empty ache. I couldn't let it rust away. I'd fix it myself, honor what she'd left me. The weight of that choice settled deep, like roots breaking ground. I stepped out into the heat, the air thick with the scent of dry earth and faded hay. The house felt too big without her, every corner echoing with absence. I hauled my duffel from the trunk, tools clinking inside. Wrenches and sockets I'd bought on a whim from some city hardware store, shiny and unused. Back in my apartment, they'd seemed like enough. Here, they felt like toys. Inside the barn, shadows pooled under the rafters, dust motes dancing in the slivers of light. The truck loomed in the center, its hood propped open like a challenge. I rolled up my sleeves, the fabric sticking to my skin already. Grandma's ghost seemed to hover there, in the grease stains on the concrete floor. I wanted to feel her strength in this, to prove I could carry it on. I popped the hood wider and peered at the engine, a tangle of hoses and metal I'd only seen in videos. My hands, pale from office keyboards and coffee cups, reached for the first bolt. The wrench slipped once, twice, my grip unsure. Oil smeared across my palm, black and stubborn, but nothing budged. I wiped it on my jeans, the stain blooming like a bruise. The sun climbed higher, turning the barn into an oven. Sweat trickled down my back, soaking my shirt, mixing with the grit that clung to everything. Frustration coiled in my chest, twisting with the grief I'd been shoving down since the hospital. Why had I thought this would be simple? A way to fix what was broken inside me. I leaned against the fender, breathing hard, the metal warm under my forehead. The truck stared back, unmoved. That's when I heard it. The crunch of gravel under tires, slow and deliberate, cutting through the stillness. My head snapped up. A pickup pulled up outside, older than mine, with a toolbox rattling in the bed. The door creaked open and boots hit the ground. Heavy steps approached the barn, pausing at the threshold. She stepped into the light, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. Tall, broad-shouldered, in faded flannel rolled to her elbows, grease streaked across her cheek like war paint. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, strands escaping to frame a face that held the sun's lines. She carried herself like she belonged here, tools clipped to her belt, jingling softly. Need a hand? Her voice was low, steady, like the rumble of an idling engine. She scanned the truck, then me, her eyes sharp. I straightened, suddenly aware of my rumpled clothes, the oil on my fingers. I'm managing. It's my grandmother's old truck. She passed last month. I thought I'd restore it. She nodded, stepping closer, her gaze dropping to my hands. They hung at my sides, palms upturned, the city softness obvious even to me. Those look like they've seen more screens than spark plugs. It wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. But it landed like a spark on dry tinder. Heat rose in my face, not just from the sun. Yeah, well, I'm learning. I flexed my fingers, feeling exposed. She tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I'm Riley. Run the garage down the road. Heard about your grandma. Tough loss. Folks around here still talk about her fixing half the rigs in the county. Riley. The name fit her. Solid and unpretentious. I introduced myself, my voice catching a little. She moved to the engine, peering in without asking, her presence filling the space. Looks like the carburetor's gummed up. Start there. She pointed, her arm brushing the air near mine. I nodded, grabbing the wrench again, but my hand shook. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant call of a crow. Why did her eyes keep drifting back to my palms? She straightened, pulling a rag from her pocket. Show me what you've got so far. I held out my hands, oil smeared but unmarked by real work. She took one gently, turning it over in the dim barn light. Her palm was rough, calluses mapping years of wrenches and engines, contrasting my smooth skin. The touch was brief, professional, but it sent a jolt through me, warmth spreading from her fingers to my wrist. "Too soft," she said quietly, releasing me. "You'll blister before you bolt much. But that's fixable." My breath hitched. Soft. The word hung there, echoing more than just my hands. City life, my careful distances, all laid bare in that inspection. I pulled back, rubbing my palm against my thigh, the ghost of her touch lingering. She stepped closer, wiping grease from her own calloused palms with a rag, the motion deliberate. "Let's see if we can get this beast breathing again. Together." Her eyes met mine, steady, and the barn didn't feel so empty anymore. She leaned over the engine, her shadow falling across the rusted manifold. The carburetor sat there, clogged and stubborn, like the knot in my throat. "See this?" Riley said, her voice low and steady, pointing to the butterfly valve with a grease-blackened finger. "It's flooded. Pull the choke off, clean the jets with some carb cleaner. Won't take but a minute if you know where to spray." I nodded, trying to absorb it, but my mind snagged on the way her arm flexed, the flannel pulling tight against her skin. The barn light slanted in, catching the fine hairs on her forearm, turning them gold. I reached for the can on my makeshift workbench, fumbling the cap. Why was I here, really? Fixing a truck alone in this heat, when back in the city I'd have called a service, paid someone else to handle the mess. "It's just, I wanted to do this myself," I said, the words tumbling out uneven. "Grandma left it to me, and she always said hands-on work builds character, or something like that. I moved away years ago, got a desk job, lights all night. But after she died, I couldn't let it sit here rotting. Felt like letting her down." Riley straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans, the denim worn thin at the knees. Her eyes met mine, dark and unblinking, holding longer than necessary. In that glance, I saw the fields she'd probably worked, the long days under this same sun. My city escape suddenly felt like running, not choosing. She shifted closer to hand me the cleaner, and her flannel sleeve brushed my arm, soft wool against my bare skin, carrying the faint scent of motor oil and something warmer, like sun-baked earth. The contact was fleeting, but it lingered, a spark jumping from her to me. I froze, the can heavy in my grip. "You don't have to explain," she said softly, but there was a question in her tone, like she wanted more. "Small towns like this, we all carry pieces of the ones gone. Your grandma fixed my dad's old Chevy once, wouldn't take a dime, said it was neighborly." I swallowed, setting the can down. The air between us thickened, dust motes swirling lazy in the beam from the open door. Why did her nearness make the barn feel smaller, the heat more pressing? I glanced at my hands again, still marked from her earlier touch, the oil not quite hiding how unused they were to this. She noticed, of course. Stepping to the side, she caught my left hand under the hanging bulb, the light harsh and revealing. Her thumb traced the edge of my palm, rough against smooth, inspecting the faint lines that spoke of typing reports, not turning wrenches. "These," she murmured, "too soft for the long haul. Blisters'll come quick if you're not careful. But they've got potential. Steady, even if they're new to it." The comment landed heavy. Not just about my skin, but everything. The way I'd padded my life with comforts, avoided the grit. Her calluses scraped lightly as she turned my hand, the pressure firm yet careful, sending a jolt up my arm. It pooled in my chest, warm and unfamiliar, exposing the vulnerability I'd wrapped in city armor. Out here, no hiding behind screens or crowds. Just her gaze, seeing through the polish to the ache beneath. I pulled away slowly, my pulse thudding in my ears. "I've managed okay so far," I said, but it sounded weak, defensive. The truth was, her touch had cracked something open, a need I'd ignored for years. Riley released me, no offense taken, her expression softening just a fraction. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant hum of cicadas outside. She didn't push, didn't fill it with chatter. Instead, she grabbed a wrench from the toolbox, the metal clinking against her belt. Here, watch this. She knelt by the carburetor, demonstrating a simple fix. Loosening a bolt with a twist of her wrist, the motion fluid, practiced. Her voice guided me, low and patient, as she explained the torque, the give of the metal. I leaned in, closer than I needed to, watching her hands move with quiet power. The engine's guts gleamed dully under the light, but it was her focus that held me. The way she handled the tools like extensions of herself. For the first time since arriving, the truck didn't feel like an impossible weight. It felt like a bridge, tentative, between where I'd been and this moment. As she tightened the bolt, a small smile played on her lips. Your turn next. Can't learn it all watching. I nodded, the jolt from her touch still echoing, mingling with the scent of cleaner in her skin. The barn wall seemed to lean in, holding this fragile start. I took the wrench from her, the metal still warm from her grip. My palm tingled where she'd held it earlier, a reminder I couldn't shake. The carburetor waited, jets cleaned but the adjustment tricky, tightened just enough to seal without stripping. I leaned in, the engine's heat rising like a breath, and twisted. Too hard. The bolt resisted, then gave with a sharp ping, sparks flying from the contact, bright flecks scattering across the concrete like angry fireflies. Damn. I jerked back, the wrench clattering from my fingers. The air smelled of scorched metal now, sharp and metallic, cutting through the hay-scent barn. Riley was there in an instant, her hand closing over mine to steady it against the fender. Her skin was rough, warm from the day's work, pressing firm to stop the shake. Easy. Breathe into it. Her voice stayed low, close to my ear, her breath brushing my neck. The warmth lingered, her thumb grazing my knuckle longer than needed, sending a slow heat up my arm. I met her eyes, inches away, and the world narrowed to that point of contact. The callus against my softness, unyielding, yet gentle. She released me slowly, but the echo stayed, pooling low in my gut. I rubbed my hand, the sparks sting nothing compared to this pull. Why did her touch unravel me like loose wire? We worked on, side by side, the sun slanting longer shadows across the floor. Dust kicked up with every shift, settling on our arms like fine silt, gritty under the sweat. It mirrored the unease building in me, this itch I couldn't name. City habits clashing with the raw here and now. You ever miss it? I asked, wiping my forehead, the rag coming away streaked. The quiet out here. I left for the city lights, the rush. Thought it was freedom. But now, feels like I traded one cage for another. Riley paused, torquing a hose clamp with steady pulls. Her flannel sleeve dusted with grime, clinging to her shoulders. Rural life's no fairy tale. Long days, folks knowing your business before you do. But it's real. You feel every ache, every win. She glanced at me, her nod subtle, eyes tracing the tension in my jaw. City escape sounds shiny, but it hides the pains. The ones that fester when you're alone in the crowd. Her words hit close. Empathy in the tilt of her head, like she'd seen my kind before, running from roots only to circle back bruised. I thought of late nights in my apartment, screens glowing while the world outside blurred, grief for Grandma buried under notifications. Out here it surfaced, raw as the oil under my nails. Yeah, I murmured, picking at a loose thread on my shirt. Escaping felt necessary then. Now it's just empty. The admission hung, dust motes swirling between us, thickening the air. Her presence amplified it, this woman who seemed carved from the land, while I felt like transplanted sod wilting in the heat. She didn't pry, just handed me a fresh rag. Our fingers brushing again. Deliberate or not, it sparked that same warmth. The engine hummed faintly now, a low protest, but my focus splintered. Proximity and the tight space under the hood heightened everything. The scent of her soap under the grease, the flex of her forearm as she pointed out the next bolt. Unease twisted deeper, a mix of want and fear, my soft hands aching to match her grit. The sun dipped low, painting the barn in orange, shadows stretching long. Sweat beaded on my skin, dust caking in the creases. Riley straightened, rolling her shoulders. That's enough for now. Let's break for water. Can't think straight in this furnace. I nodded, stepping back, the space between us sudden and cool. But the tension hummed on, like an engine idling, waiting to rev. We stepped out of the barn, the evening air a small mercy after the trapped heat. The porch steps creaked under our boots, wood softened by years of rain and boots like ours. Riley fetched 2 glasses from the kitchen, filling them with iced tea from a pitcher that had sweated rings on the counter. The liquid was amber, cold beads forming on the sides as she handed me one. We sat side by side, close enough that the step dipped under our weight. The tea was tart, lemon cutting through the sweetness, cooling my throat as I sipped. Condensation dripped onto my knee, soaking into my jeans. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the yard, turning the dust golden. Crickets started their chorus, a low hum rising from the fields. It felt like a pause, this moment. The truck waiting inside like unfinished business. Riley took a slow pull from her glass, ice clinking softly. Her throat moved with a swallow, and I looked away, focusing on the horizon where the hills met sky. "This place," she said, voice quiet against the fading light. "It's been in my family since my granddad. He started the garage with nothing but a shed and a prayer. Fixed tractors, cars, whatever rolled in off these roads. Mama took it over when he passed, taught me every bolt and gasket before she got sick." She paused, rolling the glass between her palms, the calluses catching the light. "Lost her 3 years back. Cancer. The garage is all that's left of that legacy. Grease under the floorboards, tools worn to fit our hands. I keep it going for them, you know? Feels like letting go if I don't." Her words carried weight, the kind that settled in the bones. I saw it in the set of her shoulders, the way she stared at the empty drive, like memories played out there in the gravel. Family legacy. It echoed my own pull to the truck, but hers was woven deeper, threads of loss and duty tangled tight. I set my glass on the step, the wood warm from the day. Grandma was like that. Never said much about her past, but the stories trickled out. How she drove ambulances in the war, fixed engines under fire. Unspoken secrets, mostly. Like why she never left this place. Or the letters she burned in the stove one winter. I found ashes once. Smelled like regret. The admission slipped out, raw as the evening chill creeping in. I'd never voiced it before, not even in the city where confessions felt safer. But here, with Riley's steady presence, it fit. Grandma's secrets, whispers of a love left behind, a life unlived, had always shadowed the house. Unspoken, but felt in the quiet hours. Riley turned her head, eyes meeting mine over the rim of her glass. They were dark, reflecting the last light, holding questions she didn't ask. The silence thickened, full of unspoken want, the pull of shared grief, the curiosity of what lay beneath our skins. I saw it in her gaze, a mirror to my own ache, the city walls cracking under rural truth. Our knees brushed, light as a breath, denim against denim in the quiet. The contact sent my heart quickening, a thought against my ribs, steady but insistent. Heat rose there, not from the tea, but from the nearness, the way her legs stayed put, unyielding. I didn't move away. The air held us, crickets rising, the world narrowing to that point. She cleared her throat softly, setting her glass down. "Evening's cooling. Truck won't fix itself." We stood, tools clinking softly, as we headed back to the barn, the moment lingering, like dew on the steps. The barn swallowed us again, the evening light fading to a dim glow through the open doors. Tools clinked as we settled under the hood, the truck's frame casting long shadows across the floor. Brakes next. Grandma had always said they were the heart of control, stopping what rushed too fast. Riley pointed to the calipers, rusted tight from years idle. "Loosen these first. Slow turn, feel the give. Don't force it." I nodded, grabbing the socket wrench, my palms still damp from the tea glass. The metal felt heavier now, the air cooler, but thick with the day's residue. I fitted it over the bolt, twisting with what I thought was care. It slipped once, the wrench skating off, clanging against the frame. I tried again, grip tightening, but the rust fought back. Slip. The bolt spun free too far, threads catching wrong. "Here." Riley's hand covered mine from behind, guiding the motion. Her body pressed close in the tight space, chest to my back, steadying us both. Her breath warmed my neck, calluses rough against my knuckles as she showed the angle. Like this, quarter turn, release, repeat. The warmth seeped through, her flannel brushing my arm, but I focused on the bolt, the metal yielding under combined pressure. We pulled back and I took over solo. First caliper loosened clean, a small wind that lit something in me. But the second, my fingers slicked with emerging grime, slipped again. The wrench bit wrong, grinding metal on metal. I cursed under my breath, frustration flaring hot. Why couldn't I get this? The city had softened more than my hands. It had dulled my patience for failure. Riley's jaw tightened, a flicker in her eyes as she watched. She stepped away, wiping her forehead. The silence heavy. Her patience frayed there, visible in the set of her shoulders, the way she gripped her own tool too hard. I'd pushed it, this joint effort turning into my fumbling show. She exhaled, sharp, turning to the workbench, back to me. But then she softened, turning with a rag in hand. Everyone strips one their first time. Happens. Her voice dropped, guidance threading back in, patient as the river carving stone. She knelt beside me, closer now, demonstrating on a spare bolt, slow, deliberate twists, her hand enveloping the wrench. Feel the resistance. It's teaching you. I mirrored her, our arms brushing, the lesson sinking in with her proximity. The third caliber fought hardest. I torqued too eager, and it stripped. A high whine, then nothing. The bolt spun useless, mocking my effort. Heat flooded my face, but Riley's chuckle broke first, low and unexpected. It pulled one from me, too, bubbling up despite the mess. Well, that's one way to make it unique, she said, eyes crinkling. Laughter echoed off the rafters, lightening the air, turning failure into shared ground. Her grin lingered, warming the dim space, pulling me in. We leaned into the engine bay, bodies close in the confined angle, shoulders touching as we fished out the ruined bolt. Proximity heightened everything, the brush of her hip against mine, the way her ponytail grazed my cheek when she reached past. Awareness sharpened, every shift electric, my skin prickling under the grime. Oil and sweat blended in the air, a heady mix clinging to us both, stirring deeper. It wasn't just the work, it was her scent woven in, earth and effort, drawing me closer. My pulse matched the clink of tools, the pull growing insistent, hands aching not just from the wrench, but for more of that guidance, that nearness. Frustration peaked as the last brake line resisted, my arms burning, the night fully settled outside. Riley straightened, rolling her neck. Enough. Call it a night. Dawn's better for clear heads. I nodded, stepping back, the engine's guts staring unfinished, but the pull between us hummed on. The night air wrapped around us as we left the barn, cooler now, carrying the faint damp of approaching dew. Riley suggested the riverbank, a short walk to clear the grease from our heads. I followed, boots crunching on gravel underfoot, each step grinding sharp against the quiet. The path wound past the old fence line, posts leaning like tired sentinels, wire humming softly in the breeze. Moonlight filtered through the trees, silvering the edges of leaves, turning the world edges soft. We reached the bank, the river's rush a low murmur, water carving dark paths over smooth stones. It smelled of wet earth and silt, the kind that clings to skin after rain. Riley stopped at the fence rail, leaning her forearms on the weathered wood, her flannel sleeves rolled higher, exposing the curve of her biceps. I stood beside her, close enough to feel the heat still radiating from her body, the day's work etched in the lines of her neck. She stared at the water, voice dropping to match its flow. Grew up fixing things here, but not everything mends. A pause, her fingers tracing a splinter in the rail. Had someone once. Ellie. Small town like this, everyone knew before we did. We kept it quiet, stolen moments in the garage after hours, her hands on mine under the hood. Thought it could last. But she left for the city, chasing lights I couldn't follow. Said the walls closed in too tight. Left a hole bigger than any engine block. Her words hung, guarded but cracking open, the pain raw in the way she gripped the wood. Ellie. The name carried weight, a ghost in the current. I saw it then, the solitude she wore like calluses, built from that loss. The small town's whispers etching deeper than tools ever could. Riley, who seemed so rooted, had her own uprooting. A love pulled away by the same escape I'd chased. The river rushed on, indifferent, and I felt the pull to match her honesty. My voice came barely above the water's roar, thin as the mist rising. City isolation's its own cage. Lights everywhere, but no one sees you. After Grandma, it hit harder. Nights alone in that apartment, walls echoing empty. Dates that fizzled, friends who drifted. Felt like drifting too, no anchor. Came back here thinking the truck would ground me, but it's more than that. It's facing what I ran from. Confessions spilled, voices blending with the rush, the night holding our truths close. Vulnerability mirrored in the dark water, reflections fractured but real. Riley turned her head, eyes catching mine, the moonlight pooling in them. No judgment, just a quiet nod. Empathy threading through the silence. Our hands rested on the rail, inches apart, knuckles brushing the rough grain. Mine hovered near hers, the air between thickening, charged like before a storm. Almost touching, fingertips grazing the edge of her pinky. Deliberate, yet hesitant. The contact sent a shiver up my arm, warmth blooming where our skins nearly met, the grit of the day forgotten in that nearness. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. The space hummed, full of what we hadn't said, the pull deepening with every breath. Stars emerged overhead, pricking the black sky one by one, mirroring the vulnerability in our shared gaze. They hung distant, yet piercing, like the aches we'd voiced, exposed now in the open. Riley's eyes held mine longer, a question there, soft as the river's edge. My heart thudded, steady against the night, the almost touch anchoring me more than any wrench could. She straightened finally, the moment stretching before breaking. Come on, truck's waiting. Nearly roadworthy now. We turned back, gravel crunching underfoot again, the barn silhouette waiting. But the connection lingered, roots sinking deeper. The barn door swung shut behind us, muffling the night's chorus, leaving only the soft clink of tools on the bench. Dim light from a single bulb hung overhead, casting pools of yellow across the truck's hood, shadows clinging to the edges like unspoken words. We dove back in, final tweaks to seal the wiring, the engine's heart nearly beating again. Riley squeezed in beside me under the frame, our shoulders pressing in the narrow space, bodies close enough that her warmth cut through the cooling air. Sweat from earlier dried sticky on my skin, mixing with fresh dust that sifted down from the rafters. I reached for a loose wire, frayed insulation peeling like old paint, my fingers brushing the spark plug coil. The metal hummed faint under my touch, alive with potential. Riley leaned in from the other side, her arm sliding against mine, flannel rough where it grazed my bare elbow. Here, she murmured, her voice low, guiding my hand to the terminal. Our palms aligned, her fingers tracing mine deliberately along the wire. Slow, unhurried, calluses mapping the path over my knuckles, down to the tips. The pressure was firm, intentional. Not just instruction, but something deeper. Her skin warm and sure against my lingering softness. Heat bloomed where we connected, spreading up my arm, pooling in my chest. I tried to focus on the twist, securing the connection, but her touch lingered, thumb circling lightly at the joint of my fingers. The air thickened, heavy with oil and the faint tang of her sweat, the dim light blurring the edges of everything but her. My breath caught, words faltering on my tongue, something about the gauge, the voltage, but it dissolved into heavy breathing, ragged in the quiet. Stakes rose sharp, attraction coiling tight like a spring under tension, the pull between us no longer subtle, demanding acknowledgement in the narrowing space. Her eyes lifted to mine, dark in the low light. Holding steady, a question flickering there. My pulse thudded loud, matching the distant hum of crickets outside, the world shrinking to this hood, this wire, this woman whose nearness unraveled me. I leaned closer, the wire forgotten, our faces inches apart, breaths mingling warm and uneven. Then she pulled back abruptly, clearing her throat, hand withdrawing to grab a spare connector from the bench. Tools are scattered, need the right one for this splice. The excuse hung thin, her voice rougher than before, but she busied herself rummaging, knuckles white on the pliers. I straightened, air rushing cool between us, the sudden distance a jolt like pulling from deep water. My skin tingled where she'd traced, absence sharpening the ache. Inside, a storm brewed, want twisting with fear, the city walls I'd built cracking under this rural pull. My hands, once too soft for wrenches, now ached for more than metal, for the grit of her palms, the steadiness she'd shown. Vulnerability surged, raw as exposed wire, sparking against the quiet. Why her? Why now, in this barn echoing Grandma's memory? But the attraction hummed on, undeniable, shifting the night like gravel under tires. Riley handed me the tool, our fingers brushing, brief, electric. Last connection, then we test it. I nodded, twisting the wire home, the click solid. She reached past, flipping the key in the ignition. The truck coughed, once, twice, then roared to life. A deep, throaty rumble filling the barn, vibrating through the floor. Night air shifted, rushing in cool through the doors, carrying the exhaust's bite. But the charge between us lingered, engine's growl mirroring the one building inside. The engine's roar settled into a steady growl, vibrating through the steering wheel into my palms. Riley wiped her hands on a rag, nodding toward the open barn doors. Let's take her out. Back roads'll tell us if she holds. I slid behind the wheel, the worn leather seat creaking under me, molding to my shape like it remembered Grandma's weight. Riley climbed in beside me, passenger side, her knee brushing the gear shift as she buckled up. The cab smelled of old vinyl and faint oil, mixed with the fresh bite of exhaust drifting in. I turned the key again, the truck lurching forward as I eased off the clutch. Gravel crunched under the tires, spitting out as we pulled onto the drive, the house shrinking in the rear view. The back roads unfolded ahead, narrow lanes flanked by cornfields swaying in the night breeze. I shifted into second, the transmission grinding a little before catching smooth. Wind whipped through the open windows, cool and sharp, tugging at my hair, carrying the scent of turned earth and distant rain. Stars smeared overhead, the sky vast without city glow to dull it. Riley's arm rested on the doorframe, her profile lit by passing fence posts, jaw set easy but eyes alert. Feels good, she said, voice cutting over the rumble. Your grandma would have grinned at this. I glanced at her, the dashboard lights casting blue on her cheek. Her hand rested near the gear shift, fingers loose on her thigh, inches from the stick. The proximity pulled at me, that same charge from the barn humming low. As I downshifted for a curve, my elbow grazed her, deliberate or not, the contact brief but electric. She didn't move away. The wind rushed louder, whipping strands across my face, but my focus splintered, to the road, to her steady breathing beside me. The overlook came sudden, a pull-off marked by sagging posts, the valley dropping dark below. I braked hard, tires skidding soft on dirt, the truck jolting to a stop. Headlights sliced the night, illuminating scrub brush and the faint glint of a creek far down. Engine idling rough, I cut the lights, plunging us into starlit quiet. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, heart slamming against my ribs. Riley turned, her silhouette shifting. Everything okay? No, nothing was. The drive had stirred it all. The truck's revival mirroring my own unraveling, her nearness amplifying every unspoken ache. I can't do this halfway, I said, voice cracking in the hush. Confession spilled then, words tumbling like gravel under tires. Back in the city, I built walls. Soft hands, safe job, dates that never stuck. But here, with you, your touch under the hood, the way you see through the polish, it's cracking me open. Grandma's truck was supposed to fix the grief, but it's you, stirring something real, terrifying. She leaned closer, the seat creaking, her hand finally closing over the gear shift, over mine where it rested there, warm and sure. Calluses pressed into my skin, grounding the shake. Ellie left because I couldn't follow. Stayed rooted, fixed what I could. But you're pulling at those roots. City escape or not, your hands aren't soft anymore. They've got grit now. And I feel it too, this pull, since that first glance in the barn. Her words hung, raw as the wind dying down. Vulnerability mirrored in the dark. Headlights off, but truths glaring. I turned to her, faces close, breaths sinking uneven. Her eyes held mine, dark pools reflecting stars, a question and answer in one. My free hand rose, hesitant, tracing the line of her jaw, rough from the day, warm under my fingertips. She leaned in, closing the gap. Our lips met tentatively, soft at first, a question in the press. Hers parted slight, tasting of salt from sweat and grit from the engine, mixed with the faint sweetness of iced tea lingering. The kiss deepened slow, her hand sliding from the shift to my neck, fingers threading into my hair, calluses scraping gentle. I leaned into it, the world tilting, cab narrowing to this, her mouth, warm, insistent, pulling a soft sound from my throat. Embrace tightened then, arms wrapping, body shifting across the console. Her flannel bunched under my palms, solid muscle beneath, drawing me closer until no space left. The kiss broke for air, foreheads touching, breaths shared ragged in the quiet. Her hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my lip, the touch igniting sparks deeper than any stripped bolt. Time stretched, the valley forgotten, just us, two women tangled in starlight, legacies and losses weaving into this moment. Heart thuds matched the engine's low hum outside, the pull no longer building but cresting, raw and real. She pulled back first, eyes searching mine, a small smile curving her lips. Drive us back. I nodded, shifting into gear, the truck rumbling alive again. We rolled down the road in charged silence, her hand finding mine on the wheel, fingers lacing loose. Engine hummed low, carrying us home, the night air shifting cooler, fuller somehow. The truck's tires crunched back onto the gravel drive, the engine's low rumble fading as I cut the ignition. We sat there, parked under the stars that wheeled slow overhead, the cab still humming with residual vibration. Riley's hand stayed laced with mine on the worn seat, her fingers strong yet loose, calluses pressing into my palm like anchors. The leather creaked faint under our weight, the night air seeping through the cracks, cool against my flushed skin. Exhaust lingered, mixing with the earthy scent of her, oil and sweat, now layered with the salt of our kiss. I turned to her, the dashboard's faint glow long gone, just moonlight slanting through the windshield, silvering her profile. Her breath came steady, chest rising even, but her eyes held that same charge, searching mine in the dark. "What now?" I whispered, the words thin, carrying the weight of the overlook, the confessions that had spilled like oil from a cracked line. She squeezed my hand, thumb tracing the ridge of my knuckle, deliberate as her fixes under the hood. "Stay," she said, voice low, rough from the road's wind. "Not just for the truck. Build something real here. With me. This place needs hands like yours, soft ones that learn the grit. I've waited long enough for roots that don't pull away." The promise hung between us, whispered close, her lips brushing my ear. Staying. The word settled deep, chasing the city's hollow echo from my bones. No more drifting through apartments that never fit, screens blurring the ache. Here, with Riley, the rural pull felt like home. Her garage legacy weaving into Grandma's, our shared losses forging something solid. I nodded, leaning into her shoulder, the flannel warm under my cheek. I will. For her. For us. The truck loomed outside, a shadow in the starlight, its restored frame symbolizing this new start. No longer rusted relic, but a vessel humming with life we'd coaxed back, much like the connection sparking between us. My hands, once too soft for the wrench, now bore faint blisters from the day's work, marks of progress etched in. They gripped hers tighter, no longer vulnerable but capable. The city polish traded for this honest ache. Riley shifted, her free arm draping over my shoulders, pulling me closer across the console. Her smile came then, slow and warming, like dawn creeping over cold metal, lighting the cab's dim corners. It softened the lines around her eyes, the guarded set of her jaw, revealing the woman beneath the grease and grit. The one who'd lost Ellie, but opened now, vulnerability mirroring mine. Laughter bubbled low in her throat, a shared secret in the quiet. We'll strip more bolts together. Make it ours. Emotional release washed through me. Grief for Grandma loosening its hold, replaced by belonging that settled deep in my chest. It spread warm, like oil, circulating true, filling the hollows I'd carried. Tears pricked my eyes, not from loss, but from this. Found in a barn's dust, ignited by hands that spoke louder than words. Riley wiped one away with her thumb, rough but tender, her touch grounding the swell. We stayed tangled there, breaths sinking, the stars witnesses to promises sealed without fanfare. The night deepened, crickets pulsing steady outside, but time blurred in her hold. Her head rested against mine, ponytail tickling my neck, the rhythm of her pulse matching the faint tick of the cooling engine. No rush to move, just this fullness, the truck's cab a cocoon weaving us tighter. City escape forgotten, replaced by rural truth, roots tangling, hands no longer alone. As the first hint of gray edged the horizon, Riley stirred, pressing a kiss to my temple, light as dew. Morning'll bring light to it all. We eased out, the door creaking open to the chill air, but her hand stayed in mine, guiding toward the house. The property stirred faint, barn silhouette softening, fading to the promise of morning light washing over everything. Truck, home, us. Sunrise painted the truck gleaming, its fresh polish catching gold rays, hands laced together on the hood's warm edge. If this pulled at your roots, subscribe for more quiet truths. Share below. When did hands first speak for you?